everything is impermanent, nothing lasts, right? If you just think about it for a minute, the Stoics actually use this as in a series of meditations called, sometimes referred to as the view from above. There is this notion that you try to zoom out either in space or in time and imagine that you're actually only one little thing on one little planet in one little solar system, in one little galaxy, and so on and so forth. That puts things in perspective a little bit. But also, more importantly, I think temporally. Marcus does it often temporally. And he says, you're just a moment in time. And there is all of this stuff that is preoccupying you, all this stuff that is worrying you. It has happened countless times to other people before, and it will happen countless times to other people after. It's not that the universe is after you. You're not the only one with these kind of problems. And people have reacted and have managed or survived these kind of situations before. So, what makes you think that you're so special that, it's all about you? It's not. It's just keep a perspective. So keeping a perspective and reminding yourself that things always change. No matter how bad the situation is now, eventually it will pass. Of course, we will pass as well. We are not an exception to the universe, but that's a fact of life. So I think that does help. I actually do the meditation, the view from above meditation, on a regular basis, because it kind of, it's one of those things that at an intellectual level. But if you actually sit down and think about it more explicitly, I do it actually by way of imagery. I imagine, I turn it into a visual meditation. It actually helps emotionally because you kind of internalize it better. But the other point I think is really interesting and important, and it's really at the core of Stoicism. This is the notion that value judgments are not inherent in things. Things are not in themselves bad or good. We decide whether something is bad or good, and therefore it is up to us to decide which frame of reference, which framework we're going to use in order to think at some stuff. I'm going to give you a specific example in a minute, but one of the interesting things to me is that this is in fact a phenomenon that part of human psychology that has been now rediscovered by modern psychology. It's called the framing effect. And the framing effect is very powerful. We have empirical evidence about the fact that if you frame a situation to the same exact situation to people in very different ways, they will react differently. The Stoics understood this at a sort of intuitive level, and they used it a lot. In fact, you would think that much of Epictetus' philosophy is really based on the framing effect. So let me give you a standard example. So let's say that you've been laid off from your job. So you lost your job. Be fine.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Right. So it does happen, right? Especially now, or at least you don't know what's going to happen. And now you can look at it in a number of different ways. The automatic way, because of the way we grew up and because of the way we are, shaped. Our thoughts are shaped by our parents, our peers, and society at large. Is that, oh my God, I lost my job. It's a catastrophe. Right? That's the frame that we apply automatically. But that frame is not inherent in the situation. It's not, the situation itself is not a catastrophe or a good thing. It's a thing. It's a situation, right? There is this thing that can be described in entirely neutral language. Now, suppose you actually actively try to change your frame and say, okay, I could think of this as a catastrophe and get depressed and go to the bar and start drinking, that sort of stuff, which you can't do right now because bars are closed. Right? Or you can say, hey, wait a minute. I can also see this as an opportunity. I can see this as a challenge. I can see that, okay, well, given that this is a situation and I can't do anything about the situation, what is it I can do? How can I retool myself? How can I apply my skills to another job or to another situation, which is, from what you told me, is exactly what you're doing right now, right? So now that doesn't solve the problem. The situation still is you're currently without a job, but it changes dramatically, not only the way you feel about it, the way you think about it, and importantly, the way you act on it. Mm-hmm. Instead of, drinking yourself to death because you lost a job, you say, hey, let me work on things. What is it I can do in order to change the situation? A colleague of mine, a friend of mine, Bill Irvine, wrote an entire book recently about this.
Is that his resilience book?
It's called The Stoic Challenge. Stoic challenge, and it's entirely based on the framing effect. And he recounts countless, instances, both that happened to him and that happened to other people. And one of my favorite is, so the trick that he uses mentally with himself is whenever he has a setback, instead of saying, of doing the obvious thing, reacting in the obvious ways, like, oh my gosh, this is a problem, he tells himself immediately, oh, here comes another challenge from the Stoic gods. And let's see how I'm doing. Now, he doesn't believe in Stoic gods. He doesn't think that there are Stoic gods, right? It's just a way he phrases things himself. And so he says, he thinks of it as a challenge. He says, okay, so this is I recognize it. This is a new challenge that the Stoic gods are sending me. So let me keep track of how I'm doing, right? So he literally takes it as a challenge until the end, until the situation is solved. He keeps track. He takes notes about how he's reacting and what he's doing and everything. So what does that do? First of all, it turns that into a game. Right? It's a serious game because the challenge, the setback can be serious, but it is a game. So your mind is occupied. You're not thinking about the catastrophe. You're thinking about, okay, how am I doing in answering this situation? And of course, by keeping scores, you are A, learning about yourself and your own reactions, which is going to be useful in the future. And B, actually have to think carefully about what you're going to do because you're writing it down. And so that helps you, in fact, focus on what it is that is actionable, what it is that you can do about it. And it's incredibly effective. I mean, as I said, there's pretty good research in modern psychology that shows the framing effect really does work.